is the message from the youth of our Kashmir to the politicians. Let's move on to the big debates tonight. A horrifying story, viewers, has emerged from Tamil Nadu. A 2-year-old child, a little baby, has contracted HIV, allegedly at a government hospital. The little child, who was underweight and was later diagnosed with a heart issue, at some point between these multiple trips to government hospitals, from Trichy to Thrissur and Coimbatore, at some point contracted HIV and was tested positive for that, even though the twin sibling or the parents have been tested negative. Now, the child's family blames the Coimbatore government hospital, but it could be any of the other 2 hospitals that they visited earlier. That irrespective, the fact of the matter is, for no fault of the parents or of the child, but for sheer negligence or lapse in a system, a 2-year-old today has been infected with HIV. Similarly, I'm sure you all remember, we brought you that story a few months ago. The horrifying story of a pregnant woman who contracted HIV, allegedly again due to a blood transfusion at a government hospital in the same state of Tamil Nadu. And this case only came to light after the blood donor found out some 2 years later that he was HIV positive. He then traced it back to this woman, and then they realized that she too had contracted the infection. This man, this donor, later tried to kill himself and then succumbed to those injuries. He couldn't deal with the double burden of the disease and the guilt of having given this disease to someone else. Now, this is not to say that we should not go out and donate blood, but tonight we must ask, what is going wrong? Are we being negligent? Is there a lapse in the system itself? Are the HIV tests not certain enough? Is there a problem there? Let's debate, let's discuss, ask our experts and find a solution. Let us ensure that not one more life, the life that we are actually trying to save with the additional blood, ends up possibly getting a life-threatening disease. Let's say good evening to our panelists. I've got Mr. Muridharan, political analyst, joining us this evening. Dr. Mohsin Wali, former honorary physician to the President of India. Nigat Abbas, panelist with the BJP. Dr. Ishwar Gilada, President for the AIDS Society of India. Prema Iyer, Secretary for the Inner Wheel Club of Bengaluru. And I'm going to start with Dr. Mohsin Wali. Dr. Wali, help us understand, where are things going wrong? We had you on the debate the last time as well. We've now seen 3 to 4 cases just emerge in Tamil Nadu. Data suggests similar problems may be arising elsewhere. Where does the problem lie?
Well, the system has been made foolproof now as far as the blood component transfusion and blood transfusion is concerned. And we have very advanced tests now which are necessary and mandatory for all the blood banks to check. We don't only check the HIV-1, HIV-2, we do Western blot. Also, we do very sensitive test which does not encounter the window period problem, and that is NAT test, that is antigen test. And this rules out the infectivity. So all the blood banks, for all the blood banks, this is mandatory to cross-check the blood before it is transfused. In this case, the iota of suspicion lies around the fact that the blood transfusion was stopped midway. That is where I got suspicious. Otherwise, I'm sure that in a government hospital like the one in which the child was, there is no scope of transfusion of HIV-infected blood in any case. There is no scope, I repeat. But why was that blood which was discarded not tested? If they have tested, they should prove by documentation that they have tested the blood. All these 3 tests which I have mentioned, if they come clear, then the matter ends. But again, this is a great suspicion that because the child has been through the various hospitals, it could be an injection, it could be a needle, it could be by other means. because the child had been through various therapies before coming to this hospital in Coimbatore, and that is to be investigated thoroughly. As far as the blood is concerned, the blood bank should have the data of the particular bottle, particular packet of the blood which was transfused to the baby. They should prove, it is for them to prove that they have conducted all the tests which I have mentioned, including NAT test, and only then they will be clear of this charge. Otherwise, blood transfusion is always doubtful in this case if these tests are not done as specified and as I've been telling. So this has been very unfortunate and very, very dangerous for the child who received the blood, if at all, allegedly, if at all it was infected, and this should be thoroughly probed.
Okay.
That is what I submit at the first go.
Yes, so I take your point that this has to be thoroughly investigated, if indeed, and then find out where did we go wrong. And I say this because this is the third such case that has emerged in Tamil Nadu. In the first one, it was very clear that because the donor himself found out.
This is very sad.
That he had contracted HIV, and that is even before he had donated the next time. And then he tracked down the blood to find this pregnant lady who had now already contracted HIV because she had been given his blood. And in that case, it was very clear. So if we have to understand the entire process from a blood donor to the one who finally receives blood, let's try and understand that. And Prema here, can you help us understand that process? For as a donor, I know that when I go to give my blood, I'm asked for my medical history, I am tested for various things, and then my blood is taken. What happens after that? Is that blood ever tested again for HIV or any other life-threatening diseases?
Yes, it is tested. In fact, blood donor selection is the key to donor and blood safety. For ensuring blood safety, there are various standards, procedures, which every blood bank should follow, and they should provide pre- and post-donation counseling services. And there should be, every medical officer of a blood bank should have a donor counselor present there. And like you said, the process is, once a blood is taken, yes, there are certain parameters to be followed, whether the person has got, diabetes, blood pressure. There are certain standard procedures. And HIV also is tested for. So the medical officer of a blood bank should inform the donor about any seroreactive result of transfusion being transmitted, any infection. It is very important to undertake that. So donor counselor is most important to ensure blood safety.
No, is it the the lab or the blood bank that's taking the blood and testing it who's responsible for informing the donor, or do they have to tell NACO or the authorities who then go back? And also, do the hospitals who get the blood also test it before it's given to the patient, or do they not do any test further?
Yes. Yes. No, the authorities, the hospital authorities also have an equal responsibility to test it out before injecting it into the patient it's supposed to be injected into.
Okay, so that's
so at every process, at every stage, everyone is responsible.
Sure. Okay. So then let me take this point across to Mr. Muralidharan and ask him, Mr. Muralidharan, this must be a concern, and a similar case came out 6 months ago. What is it that the authorities in Tamil Nadu are doing? What more do you think they should be doing? Isn't this a slight of a concern for the government right now?
Yeah, Tanvi, but it's very grave. I mean, whatever happened to this little child, it shouldn't have happened, and it more or less looks like somebody's neglect and somebody has misfired. But the hospital also has a different kind of story, saying that we did check the blood and we went through the reports and it was negative, etc. But that's debatable. and ultimately the sufferer is the small kid. Having said all this, if you look at Tamil Nadu per se, in 2013-14, the number of people who were affected, who were diagnosed first time, it was standing at something like 10,000 or 15,000 or so. But it's gradually decreasing, and it's 2017, it was 17-18, it was 10,000. So there's a 5,000 drop from what it was earlier. But having said all this, this is definitely a much superior state in terms of medical facilities, etc., and it's the premier state for medical tourism. And the local, the health standards, like if you take the number of medical universities, etc., even I'm not only talking about the private ones, I'm talking about the public ones, and there are very advanced medical colleges which are run by the government. So this is recurring. I mean, that's very unfortunate and sad, and it should not happen.
Yes.
So there was a health secretary who was there in the seat for the last 7 years. Now he has been transferred now.
Okay.
So there's a new health secretary coming in. Let's see whether he'll be able to plug this.
Okay, so you're saying the health secretary has been changed.
He should be able to plug this, whatever is happening.
No, but then probably there needs to be a larger investigation to find out systematically or systemically where are things going wrong. Because at the end of the day, if we are being told by the experts that when the blood is taken, when the blood is donated, there are tests done, then when the blood is, before the transfusion takes place, there are tests done, and the hospital authorities, the labs, the blood banks, everybody is responsible to check and maintain that database. Clearly something somewhere is going wrong. Now, before I go across to Dr. Gilada, I in fact have VP Sarthi on the phone line. He is the lawyer who is representing the family, the patient's family in this specific case. Mr. Sarathi, thank you for speaking to us. Can you tell us what happened and why is the family so sure that the child contracted HIV only at the Coimbatore government hospital via transfusion?
Yeah, I will tell you the timeline, what had happened. The 6th February 2017, the child was born in Trichy Government Hospital. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
And 11th July 2018, the child was admitted in Trichy Government Hospital.
Right.
Where she was, the child was taken, referred to Tirupur Government Hospital, and then from there, Tirupur Government Hospital, the child was referred to the Coimbatore Medical College Hospital. The Coimbatore Medical College Government Hospital admits the child on 12th July 2018, and the fresh frozen plasma was administered to the child. We have the records to show that. What is more shocking is more than the HIV infected blood administered to the child. What is more shocking is the attempt of the authorities to manipulate the records to suit their claim and make a false defense that it was not FFP, but only the fat cell that was administered to the child.
Okay.
This is most unfortunate. Authorities are in a denial mode.
Okay. And you are saying they're trying to tamper with the records to change this?
That has already started. But we have the records to show that records have been tampered with to manipulate their own false defense.
Okay.
That is more shocking.
Right.
That's one thing. Secondly, let me make it very clear. The authorities have been claiming that the child have been taken care of, given treatment in other several hospitals. It is not correct. The child and the child's family are very, very poor. They cannot afford to any treatment in any private hospital.
Okay.
The only 3 hospitals the child has been given treatment is, one is Trichy General Hospital where it was born. Second is the Tirupur Government Hospital where it was referred. From there, the child was referred to the Coimbatore Government Hospital. The child was never taken to any private hospital anywhere or any other hospital, except for the vaccination, which was done in a primary health center, again a government institution.
Right.
Therefore, there is no chance for infection, HIV infection for the child, except through the blood transfusion, which was done in the Coimbatore General Medical College Hospital, government hospital.
How old was the child when this blood transfusion was done?
It was just 11th July, the 12th July 2018. It was 2 years old.
2 years old at that point. Okay. Mr. Sarthi, please stay on with us and what you said, let me take it across to Dr. Gilada and ask his views. Dr. Gilada, you've heard the timeline there. Where do you think things could have actually gone wrong? Do you believe that it is possible that the child contracted AIDS via the blood that was given?
Tanvi, I find this is a total policy paralysis. What has happened about 2-3 months back, same thing is repeated here. Possibly things have been changed after that, but the cases of such kind of child will keep on coming over a couple of more years. And this possibly because of the paralysis in the government itself. After the Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha was sick, thereafter there has been nothing happening in the government. And thereafter again the change of guards and change of guard couple of times. I think there is no proper functioning in the government. Otherwise, Tamil Nadu was supposed to be one of the best performing states in HIV control program in the country. It was along with Maharashtra, because Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu started reporting HIV cases first in 1985-86. So thereafter they have toned up total administration very well. Now in such case where the child has been given blood transfusion, there are two possibilities. One is child was given blood transfusion, and I overheard somebody saying that they withdrawn the blood midway. That means they realized the mistake that the blood was already HIV positive. And that we discussed earlier also, that sometimes callousness happens there. But second possibility is that the blood was in window period. And we discussed, Dr. Wali was telling that ideally these tests are done, Western blot is done, NAT is done. I disagree with him. NAT is not done at more than 4 or 5 blood banks in the entire country. There are more than 1,000 blood banks. So we have been demanding that NAT should be introduced as early as possible, because that reduces the window period to 3 to 7 days rather than 6 weeks to 3 months. Second thing is the people talking about cost of NAT that can be reduced by doing a pool testing. Fourth thing is we have to look at some kind of callousness happening even in the treatment of the child.
Okay.
Because the child was underweight, the child was in incubation. So in that period, if some kind of injections were given,
so Dr. Gilada, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you here.
Doesn't occur through intact skin.
Right. Dr. Gilada, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but just for the understanding of our viewers, let me just ask you to help us break this down. Usually the test that is conducted, which is I think called the ELISA test, you are saying that the test window there is much longer, 6 weeks to 3 months. So it could take 3 months for the HIV to show up in the blood sample?
Most blood banks in the country, yes, it takes minimum 6 weeks to 3 months, maximum 3 months.
And the other test that you are talking about right now?
Those people who are already HIV infected, and NAT, nucleic acid amplification test, NAT.
Is that by law? Is that by law compulsory, or is it just an advisory, which is why most hospitals are not following it? But you say this is a better test because it brings the window narrower.
It reduces the risk of infection and transmitting through the blood.
But we have been discussing with the National AIDS Control Organization.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are in discussion with the NACO, National AIDS Control Organization. Just last week I had a discussion with Dr. Saxena, who is the Joint Director of NACO, and we requested him that NAT should be introduced as early as possible. And as a law, as a compulsion, because in most other advanced countries they are doing it. In some of the even developing countries they are doing NAT test. Because here, you see, Tanvi, there are two things. One is here somebody is getting from blood transfusion, that speaks volumes on your health system. Secondly, no child should get HIV infection either from mother to child or from blood transfusion because of two things. Because hardly there are few drugs available for treating child. And secondly, whatever drugs are available, the companies stop their manufacture. So you have to divide a tablet into 10 or 20 or 16, go to some kind of chemist shop or goldsmith shop. So this is a so tedious process to treat a child. For adult, there are many drugs available. For children, hardly anything available.
Okay.
So I think we should be doubly careful when we are dealing with a child. We don't want any child to get HIV.
Okay, so the point that you raised, and that's a larger point, let me quickly get a reaction from Nigat Abbas. Good to have you with us, Nigat. I believe this would be the first time that you're joining us, but of course on a very concerning topic. What our experts are also telling that perhaps a lot more needs to be done when it comes to ensuring that a more sure test is used and used by everybody. Do you think that perhaps the government in the last few years has not done enough because we thought we had a control on this issue? We've cut the budget of NACO and we're not pushing it enough in terms of implementation as we should be. Have we let our guard down?
See, I'll tell you what, this will not be very, I'll not do justice if I conclude some point because things have not been proven yet. But as far as the government points are concerned and the people are concerned who are facing such kind of issues, we cannot deny the fact that yes, such scams are going on in the country and that needs to be stopped because it is a very critical situation and a very major concern to look after because it is about the lives of people. Let's not politicize this matter at all because this is about the humanity. Now, when we talk about the country, what the government has done, when we precisely talk about the healthcare, the central government has taken a lot of steps. Obviously, not everything can happen in 5 years. Things takes time, but still, what we can talk about in 5 years, there are lots of things which has been done. When we talk about Ayushman Bharat, which is a different thing, but yes, we're talking about health center. When we talk about specifically for HIV, NACO has been done. It has been initiated. There's an app which we all know that which has the risk calculating factor. When we talk about Mission Indradhanush, which has been a huge success in the concern of the vaccinations for the pregnant women and the children below the age of 2 years. We also talk about the ARV therapies, which are the free therapies. Over 10 lakh people have already been treated under the ARV free therapy. The insurance covers for the healthcare have been increased from 1 to 5 lakhs. So there are a lot of things which the government has already been doing, and the government needs to, I'm sure the government needs to take more advanced steps to stop such things and bring in more power to the innocent lives so that we do not get into, because today people in Tamil Nadu are facing, we might face it all over India, which will be a major concern for our country, and we obviously none
Nigat,
of us,
let me
none
ask
of the
you a
parties
question,
and none of us,
because
it
you're
is
talking
not
about
BJP wants any of our people to get into these
yeah,
kind
no
of
party
traps.
wants that. The point is, how much does a government do? Let me ask you this question: what good is cheaper or free treatment or cheaper or free drugs under the Ayushman scheme once the child has already contracted HIV? My question to you is very specific right now. It's not about a government's larger health policy. It's about your attitude and your commitment and your policy towards tackling AIDS and the contraction of HIV. In that scenario, are you doing enough?
See, we are already, that is exactly what I said, Tanvi, that we've already taken steps. But as far as this part is concerned, we cannot give, that will be very, I just said that will be very injustice if I give some kind of statement against the government or anybody else, because the things have not been proven yet. We're not sure of anything. Let the investigation go on. And then already the state health minister himself has taken these steps. 2 committees have been set up to monitor such things.
Okay.
And already the 3 of the officials of hospitals have been terminated. So that it will not do justice if I comment right now.
Let me go back.
To be investigated. We need to investigate a lot of things right now until we come to a conclusion.
Okay, let me go back to Dr. Mohsin Wali on the point that we were earlier discussing. Dr. Wali, the fact of the matter is, and I still find this slightly discomforting, that the test that normally we use across India, may not always be sure, because once I have contracted HIV, it can take up to several months before it starts showing in my sample. And by then, if I have donated blood in that window and that blood has been tested and put somewhere, then it won't be detected. Do we have a solution to this problem? Do we have enough checks in the entire chain to ensure then that infected blood doesn't reach somebody?
No, this has been amply discussed that we should have the donor's history, and the donor's profile is to be known. In most of the cases, there are donors attached to a blood bank who are the regular donors. There are camps which the blood banks do, and with doing this type of camps, they collect the blood. And the clinical examination and the routine examination also shows some clues if the person is looking healthy. And all these tests should be compulsory, mandatory, and should be done at any cost, because life is costlier than any of these tests. As was suggested, pooling for NAT test should be done. In this case, we have been seeing that the child was given a transfusion, and there were two things which were mentioned by the lawyer. One was the component transfusion as a fresh frozen plasma, and second was PEG cells. These are the two different things, and we should trace back that who were the donors. It is very simple to find out who is wrong and where we went wrong. As far as the safety of blood banks is concerned, government has placed stringent instruction and orders, and cost is nowhere discussed, because the life of the citizen is more important than anything else, and we should be very serious about it. This thing has been happening. This is the third time we are discussing the same issue, and it seems nothing has moved. And NACO and Health Ministry should jointly sit down for this problem, because other than HIV, there is a hepatitis B, C risk, and there are some rare diseases also could be contacted, even malaria, as we know. So we have to be very, very serious, and in this particular case, we should go back and trace the donor if the blood sample is not available to verify the claim of the medical college which has transfused the blood. So this is very important because there is a data in the blood bank about the donor, what is the source, where from we have collected this blood, whose transfusion, either it is a fresh frozen plasma or it is a component transfusion as PEG cells. So we can always go back and trace and be careful and learn and blacklist those donors for future. In the previous case, the donor ran to the hospital saying that I have been detected HIV positive, which was very strange. In this case, the transfusion was stopped midway. Why was the transfusion stopped? This is very, very important aspect in this case. And if the transfusion was stopped, why is it not disclosed to the guardians and parents of the child that why we have stopped the transfusion? So these all creates doubt. So we have to make a stringent policy. In policy, all the tests, nobody should be exempted. All the tests by any method, by any cost, they should be included, and steps should be taken to provide these tests. And these tests should be available. Unless these tests are available, the safety of the recipient of the blood is jeopardized. So we have to be very, very serious in this matter now onwards.
Yes, absolutely. Let me go back to Mr. Sarthi. Mr. Sarthi, what has been the response of the authorities? Have you gotten in touch with the health department for this specific case? The hospital can go on to deny that they have not done anything wrong. But if indeed it is HIV-infected blood, then we need to trace it back to the owner to minimize the damage as well. What has the government's response been?
That is what I feel is most unfortunate. The Dean of Coimbatore Medical College Government Hospital has already gone to the press even before we came to the press. He had gone to the press and said he had already checked the donor's sample with Vellore Hospital, and found that it was not infected. Within 6 hours of receiving information, he goes to the press and denies the whole story. That is most unfortunate. And the child and the mother, who are very poor, they were made to sit on the veranda of the hospital. And they were not given admission. They were not treated as inpatient till 12 o'clock yesterday. And only after we went to the press, then they were given some place in the hospital,
right,
and they were started
but
taking
you say
care of.
but you say that you have evidence that suggests otherwise. Will you be able to share with us what is this evidence that proves that the hospital is the one that was negligent here?
No, let me tell you one thing. The dean of the Medical College Hospital says it was not fresh frozen plasma only through which HIV infection was possible. But the medical record, their own medical record is available with us, which has been fabricated, forged to make it appear it is not, as though it was not a FFP, that is called fresh frozen plasma, and only packed cell was given. The forgery is very evident even to the naked eye. So we are definitely contemplating legal action, and the poor family should be given adequate compensation, and the poor child should be given quality treatment to save its right to life and right to health.
Right.
Till yesterday evening, the child was not admitted and it was not given treatment. Only after we went to the press.
Well, that is the unfortunate part, Mr. Sarthi, especially when it comes to our government hospitals. Often the overburdened and filled with apathy government hospitals just don't respond to those who really need their help. Stay on with us, please. I believe we've also got a viewer on the phone line, Mr. S. Kumar. Mr. Kumar, I'm going to request you to just stay on with us for 60 more seconds because I quickly wanted to get Mr. Muralidharan's response. Mr. Muralidharan, do you think that, the government can take a note of this and step in, that the new health secretary should step in and ensure that a proper investigation is done just in case it was this blood and the donor still doesn't know, or that more of that blood samples are being sent out to other patients? We put a stop to it and minimize this damage.
Definitely, Tanvi. I think there's no two ways about it. But what we need to understand here is something puzzles me. If Mr. Sarathi is on the line, he can answer me this. See, the child was born in Trichy General Hospital. Now that's 5 hours from Chennai. And when the child had a problem, they directed the child to be taken to Tirupur, which is around 4 hours away from there. And whereas there's another huge, big medical college called the Tanjavur Medical College, which is one of the best and the biggest in the country, which is only 1 hour away. But this child was taken some 3 hours away to a place called Tirupur, from there again to Coimbatore, which is further down. And this doesn't connect. And as Mr. Sarathi said, if the dean has gone to the press within 6 hours, he says, the blood sample I checked with Vellore. Vellore is in its CMC, it's on the way to Bangalore. And halfway to Bangalore from Chennai, it's a different direction altogether. And they have confirmed the blood is not infected. So there are too many missing pieces here. So either Mr. Sarathi can answer this, or the health secretary has to put these pieces together.
So here is my bit. Even if it is not the Coimbatore hospital, it is one of the 3 government hospitals that the child has visited in those 2 years of the child's existence. And somebody somewhere was negligent, which needs to be found out. But Mr. Sarthi, do you want to respond to that before I move ahead?
Yes. The father of the child is working in Tirupur district. He is settled in Tirupur district, which is just 50 kilometers away from Coimbatore. So, though the child was born in Trichy Government Hospital, the place of work of the victim child's father is Tirupur district. That's the reason why at Tirupur Government Hospital, the child was referred.
Okay.
And from there, in ambulance, the Tirupur Government Hospital sent the child to the Coimbatore Medical College Hospital.
Okay, thank you for clarifying on that. Let's go across to S. Kumar also on the phone line from Ludhiana. Mr. S. Kumar, go ahead, please. What would you like to say?
Yeah, good evening. I just want to ask one question from the panels.
Yes.
What I read somewhere was that if you are HIV positive and it has to be detected in the blood, it takes minimum 3 weeks to 6 weeks to come into the blood. And if today I am got affected and tomorrow I go and donate the blood, what are the precautions by the government or by the government hospitals or anywhere where they can detect it that you are actually HIV positive? Because it will not come into any reports. And the second thing is, the case what we are talking about of the pregnant woman who got affected by a person 27-year-old, and that was given on 30th of November, he donated the blood, and 3rd of December, that blood was given to that pregnant lady, and on the 7th of December, he came to know. He came to know only when he went for the counseling. He had to get the blood test for the visa, and
Yes.
then he got the report. Actually, why it was not reported by the government hospital?
It wasn't. They failed to do that. You're right there. And the fact is that once his blood tested positive, the rule is that you tell the local narco authorities and then they go ahead and inform the donor or the patient in that case, and that wasn't done. And that's the other big glaring lapse which is there in the system. Perhaps we could have saved that pregnant lady from being infected and many more who may have gotten infected. We don't even know that. But to answer your question, let me go across to Prema Iyer. Prema Iyer, question there from our viewer. Because there is a window when it doesn't show up in the sample, what are the safeguards which are in place?
Yeah, the safeguards which should be in place is that the time, the duration when the date when the blood sample is collected and when it is actually transmitted to the patient. So there should be, in fact, it should not be immediately administered to the patient, so that 3 weeks is, the time like this gentleman just pointed out, that, it shows up only after 3 weeks.
Right.
So that time, the time when the blood sample is taken, so that quality control is most important.
Yes. Okay.
And yes, there should be checks and balances, a quality control at every stage. Yeah.
Okay. Before we wrap up, Dr. Gilara, last word to you. Do you think that maybe because we don't have tough laws in place, perhaps the possibility of criminal action against those who are negligent, whether it's at the blood bank or at the hospital, that we see such kind of negligence now, pop up?
Tanvi,
Yes.
there are
Yes.
laws in place.
We need
There is
to
a
have proper
HIV
laws.
AIDS Act 2017, which has been just formulated last year,
Okay.
under which anybody who is negligently doing something like this can be punished for 2 years of jail. But just now Prema was telling something that you take a blood and don't transfuse for 3 weeks. By keeping 3 weeks, the things will not change. The window period is in the person, in the patient, and the patient would be having antigen but not the antibodies, and therefore the first generation test used to have 6 months, then second generation 3 months, then third generation came 3 to 6 weeks. So by that way we are reducing the window period, but the window period can be largely reduced by using NAT test, and that is good in blood banking, may not be in the routine screening in HIV testing center. The point I would like to make here is that there is a major serious thing happening now. There is an institution called National AIDS Research Institute, NARI, in Pune. I just read about 2 days back that they are going to close NARI, or they are going to change the mandate of NARI. So the AIDS is not going to be mandate of that institute, which is a AIDS institute of national character. So if we are such a short-sighted people, that we have a knee-jerkism, we think that HIV is going down so we can stop the institution functioning, that is ridiculous. When HIV is going up, we do all, keep aside everything and we talk only AIDS, that is also wrong. So that knee-jerkism in government should stop. From our side, from AIDS Society of India, I would like to put in Dr. Kumaraswamy from Chennai, who is the General Secretary of ASI, and Dr. G. Manoharan from Coimbatore to investigate this matter and give us a proper report in next 2 weeks' time. And thirdly, we are willing to provide all kind of assistance free of charge to government of Tamil Nadu or anywhere in the country wherever they need a technical assistance from organizations like us or experts like us.
Right. Thank you so much. And we hope that the government takes up this offer. I had one viewer who's just messaged saying, please, Tanvi, please tell, is the government doing anything for the poor child? We don't know yet. I don't think they have responded. But the idea of having this conversation was to bring to the notice of the authorities, of the government in Tamil Nadu and the central government. You cannot get complacent when it comes to diseases like AIDS. You cannot get complacent and say, oh, we've now got a control over it, so let's cut down on the budgets, let's push it back, focus somewhere else. We always have to be on our toes, especially when there are lapses which are possible, especially when there are gaps for negligence, there are possibilities for negligence. In Tamil Nadu now, at least 3 cases have emerged where such allegations have been made. It is time for an overhaul from the Tamil Nadu government. Granted, the Tamil Nadu had one of the best records so far, but that is now getting overshadowed, and even one life cannot be taken for granted when it comes to this. If there is a good test, if there is a more certain test that is available out there, then why is the government not coming out and making it a rule, making it a law, that every lab, every blood bank, every hospital has to carry out the NAT test? So what if it is more expensive? Is it not worth the value of a human life in our country? That is what the government has to do. The experts are there to tell us how to fix these problems. Ensure that those things are done. Ensure that you find the negligent person and punish that person. Ensure that you fill in these loopholes and ensure that the correct test is available. This is not to discourage you from donating blood or accepting blood when there is an emergency. This is to wake up our authorities and ensure that such cases don't happen again and again. Thank you for joining us on this debate.